All the, we're calling for no deviations because everything that was already approved as a variance, which is noted in our notes, is maintained, right? Lot area, 14,401 square feet. Total building area proposed, 46,693. The building is 6 stories and 66 feet to the top of the roof deck. There's 35 residential units proposed, 10 one-bedrooms, 22 bedrooms, and 5 studios, nice round numbers. The elevator is obviously proposed, so the building is completely ADA accessible. And you'll see the first floor, which had some reconfiguration, but we maintained 19 parking spaces, a trash room, recycling, residential lobby, club room, mail package room, residential storage, and bike storage. Parking is accessed from Storms Avenue from that 25 by 100 lot. So you can see here I have a series of before and after plans. Circulation remains the same. You'll see that we've changed the parking layout a little bit to add some amenity space. And I'll zoom in there in a second. Just bollard lights, we're just kind of showing where those are just to kind of remind the board that there's plenty of lighting in the project. Trash removal. The trash removal plan has stayed the same, where the trash comes out and will be taken out on that 25 by 100 lot onto Storms. The basement floor has been expanded to include a gym, a yoga room, as well as some additional residential storage. So you can see the plan on the left just had a fairly narrow depth. Now the plan on the right is a little bit deeper, where we're just adding some more amenity, and that is subterranean, right below ground. And then the other significant change is how we've reorganized the parking. We still have 19 spaces. You see there was a kind of proposal initially where we had the parking pushed to the outside walls of the building. We've kind of jogged the parking now in the right plan, and what that does is it allows us to create some amenity space within that floor, some additional amenity space, which is very important to the client. The green roof on the second floor has also been removed and put back up onto the roof. So we have a net, I think a net zero loss. There's the green roof has kind of been re-put up there. You can see the plans. There's been modest changes to the residential units just because the building code has changed. There were some updates to the ADA code, but again, same number of bedrooms and units and that kind of thing. And then the roof plan, you see that whereas there were 2 original sort of swaths of green roof in the front and the back, we now have green roof basically everywhere we possibly can. And so what we're doing is we're managing the stormwater by taking that second floor green roof and moving it up to the primary roof, which is on the 6th floor. And then there's just been some realignment of the windows. So you can see that we had a staggered alignment initially on the west elevation. Those are more kind of vertical now. And then, again, modest changes on the side elevation as well.
Can you slow down a little?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. So as I said, on the side elevations, which are the north elevations, we have a lot of glazing, which is really nice. You can see we have a series of balconies that are maintained. So you can see the elevation. There's really not any kind of significant change there. And then the east elevation, which is the back of the building, as I mentioned, for the west elevation, we just took these staggered windows and aligned them more vertically. And this all, I should say, this was all precipitated, as Mr. Pizzillo said, by a new owner coming in and looking at things, and we got into the construction with them a little bit more, and these are modest changes that they've requested. I don't think they significantly impact the building at all. Building section, so you can see on the bottom there's a deeper basement I showed you in the plan, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public who has any comments about this? Okay, if not, commissioners, do we have any comments, questions?
I have a question. I'm just wondering how so everybody that's going to come into this building is going to come into this sidewalk, and also the cars as well?
Yes. So, and that hasn't changed. This is, as I said, a very, very odd-shaped lot in the city. and so designated a flag lot. And so it's a kind of almost like a letter P in shape, right? And so we have a 25 by 100 lot, which in the R1 district, you could do, a more than two-family house now with the current R1. We're leaving that as just an open drive aisle. And so that'll be a driveway access aisle as well as a pedestrian access to get back to the building. And then, as I showed you in the ground floor plan, we have the garage entry, if you can see my hand here, and then we have the building lobby entry here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if no other questions, I'm asking for a motion to approve case Z20.
You have the,
Oh, I'm
The
sorry, staff, I'm sorry, staff.
Yeah, I actually did have one question actually for the applicant. Are you guys changing the amount of compact parking spaces? Because I don't see them on the proposed floor plan for the
Yeah.
parking spaces.
I don't believe we are. I think you can see that we have all the parking is dimensioned, so we do have some compact that make that up, and that's on this side. These are full 9 by 18 spots. These are compact spots here, and then we have compact spots in the back as well.
Okay. Staff recommends approval, contingent upon the applicant agreeing to comply with the conditions enumerated and associated with the original approval.
No issues complying with any of those conditions, thank you.
Staff recommends approval.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now, I'm asking for a motion to approve case Z2024-0058.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Can I get a second?
Commissioner Zablicki,
Yes.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Shadid,
Yes.
Commissioner Barron,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Arujo,
yes.
and Chair Coyle.
Yes.
Thank you
Motion-
all very much.
Motion carries all in favor.
All right,
Thank you, Commissioners. Have a nice day.
you're welcome.
Take care.
I would like to recognize that we have a council person in our presence tonight. Mira Prinz Ray is here. Welcome. Okay. The next case I was going to hear is Z2023-0019, 136 Delaware Avenue. But I understand that the most
there he goes.
up-to-date plans have not been submitted.
10
Have
days
not
prior.
been submitted, and all new information is supposed to be posted 10 days prior to any of the hearings. Is this the case?
Good evening, Charles Harrington of Connell Foley on behalf of the applicant. It is the case in that we have an exhibit tonight that we were going to propose a change to the building to accommodate a concern of the community to remove some structure over the parking lot area. That's the only change. It was in direct response to the concern raised by the condominium unit to the south of the building.
But the planning board, zoning board, Tanya and her crew have not seen this yet to see what you're putting in for tonight?
They have not.
Yeah.
That's a different story.
Yeah, I think we have to postpone this then.
Bonus. Well, carry your notices. Is there anybody in the public here for 136 Delaware?
Okay,
Sorry. Did you see these new plans? No, obviously not.
okay.
So,
I don't know if our architect has been the point person working with the community. There's been a lot of back and forth, and this, as I said, it's in response to the comments and
Okay.
concerns that we've been trying to address.
Okay, but I think they have to follow the proper channels and submit the paperwork, okay?
Understood. So
Thank
we'll,
you.
Carry it to February 6th?
Yes,
sorry, members of the public. I think it's best if it's on the portal, everybody sees it, And then when you come back, you can tell us, yeah, you like it, you don't.
Yeah,
So the record is clear, we'll preserve your notices. There'll be no new notice, and we'll all see you on February 6th. Good.
Thank
See
you.
you then.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. The next case is Z22-078, 140 Glenwood Avenue. And I don't know who's here. Okay.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Stephen Joseph of Casano Quigley Cherami for the applicant. Dennis is coming up here now. We'll find the right thing to get his laptop hooked up, but while we are doing that, I do have my notices here. We did re-notice for the new year, so let's get those entered into evidence.
You have submitted those, yeah, we did review those, the notice, the affidavit, proof of service, notice of publication. So Bridget, for this application, we'll mark this as A1. No.
All right. While Dennis is getting set up here, 138, 140 Glenwood Avenue. This is an existing four-story dormitory. It's in the university zone of Jersey City. The applicant plans to rehabilitate and adaptively reuse the building as a 43-unit apartment. Might sound familiar. There's been several other applications on the same block, very similar university use, converting into dwelling units. 4 of those 43 units will be affordable. In order to accomplish this, the applicant is requesting preliminary and final site plan approval with D variance for use. We do have Dennis Davino here this night as our architect. We have Sam Bellamy here as our planner, and Dennis is going to walk us through the plans. You ready to go? Let's get you sworn in as soon as you pull up the plans. All right.
Raise your right hand to be sworn.
Yeah.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state and spell your full name.
Dennis, 2 N's, D-E-N-N-I-S, Davino, D-E-V as in Victor, I-N-O.
All right. Dennis has been qualified before this board many times. I would ask the board again accept his qualifications.
And my license is current.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Dennis,
you, and Happy New Year's, everyone.
We have your messages.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. Alrighty, I think we probably all know the building. This is one of 4 on Glenwood Avenue that St. Peter's has sold. This is the third one that we're presenting to the board. 104 Glenwood was the first, 146 was the second, and 138, which is this one, is now the third building that we're before this board about. And again, it's mainly about the use variance. The area, of course, is zoned for university. Dormitory is permitted in university. I put this on the record before this board, and I think it's important to do it again, is that even though it's a change of use in the zoning, it's not a change of use as far as the building code is concerned. Dormitory is considered a multifamily, and we are now just simply seeking to make the zoning a multifamily. So I just wanted to put that on the record. The building is a block, I'll just start with the block 13204, lot 60. The building was constructed in the early 1940s. St. Peter's purchased it, when it was originally constructed, it was built as a multifamily, as a rental. St. Peter's purchased it in the early 80s and converted it to dormitories, and has now decided to sell it. I think they actually, not to plagiarize the staff report, but the report indicates that if this location was considered an R3, it would be allowed to have 83 units per acre. This particular site at 43 total units comes to 75 units an acre, so it's actually less than if it were considered an R3 zone.
Mr. Davino, just a clarification, the R3 standard is 145 units per acre?
Yeah, 145 units an acre, right, exactly, I'm sorry. But it would be, right, this particular site would end up being 83, permitted to be 83 units an acre, right?
I believe so,
Yeah.
total. I haven't done the math, but that sounds within the ballpark.
More than
Yes.
what we're proposing. So we'll zoom in on, I guess we'll get started on the zoning chart. Oh, we're good. So again, the variance that we're seeking mainly is the C variance, which is the change of use or the change from university to multifamily. The second requirement is the variance would be maximum building height. Now, the building height, we're not changing. Everything is essentially staying the same amount of units. All the layouts stay the same. The building has 4 stories, 44.5 feet. So what's permitted in the zone is 40 feet. But again, it's an existing non-conforming. The buffer in the back of the building is required to be 10 feet. The rear yard right now, how it exists right now is 14 feet 9 inches, so it would be difficult if we put a 10-foot buffer there. We'd only end up with less than 5-foot rear yard. So we're proposing a 3.5-inch buffer. That buffer is completely lined, planted with arborvitae, a dense arborvitae to create a natural buffer there. In the rear yard, we're proposing areas for a dog run, as well as the other variance that we're seeking is the bicycles are required to be inside, and we're proposing for them to put on the outside. Again, this board has seen 2 other applications where we made the same proposal, and we put the bicycle racks inside of or underneath a shelter. The shelter design is in the application, is in the drawings.
And Dennis, that's a result of it being an existing building and not having an adequate accessible location inside the building, correct?
Well, you would have to put the bike rack in the basement. That would require the proper headroom. It would require pulling bicycles up and down stairs. And when I move forward a little bit, this building has been designed, when it was originally designed, it's designed in 5 separate sections. There's 5 separate entrances. Each entrance covers either 9 or 6 units. The center entrance, there's a total of 6 units that entrance accommodates. The other 4 sections or quadrants, if you will, there are 9. The one in the front left, there's actually 10 because there's 1 unit in the basement. That's a 3-bedroom, which would be the 3-bedroom that would be designated to one of the affordable units. So we have a total of 43, and that would mean that we would, where would the bicycle racks actually go? You wouldn't want to put them into each individual quadrant or each individual set of stairs. So we felt in order for it to be in a neutral location, as well as maintaining outside, and what we testified before is that there is always this concern about bicycles and electric bicycles having, a fire hazard. So we prefer to put them outside. We felt we created an adequate shelter for them. So that is what the 3rd variance is requesting. We total of 43 units. Again, there's no change in any of the layouts. There is a total of 4. 12 two-bedrooms, 31 bedrooms, and then the one three-bedroom in the basement. Okay. I'll just kind of, sorry. Yeah, I know. Okay, site plan. Like I mentioned, most of the work that is being proposed, most of the changes to the site are being proposed to the exterior of the building. We're showing a total of 6 trees. Actually, I was out there today. 5 trees have already been planted by the city or by the community. So we'll be either adding a tree or seeing if we can fit in a 6th tree. The other change that the community board had recommended was that we provide some sort of area for deliveries. So if you notice right here, right in this location right here, a little bit more space here. Yeah, I apologize, here. In this location right here, there is an area that we're proposing to put deliveries. That area is going to be shared by both 138 and 146 building. We're proposing to, the existing front gate or fence is 7 feet, 6.5 to 7 feet into the right-of-way. We're proposing to take that fence down, bring it into, on the property line, giving that sidewalk an additional 7 feet in width. And that basically is the changes to the front of the building. And as you can see to the rear of the building, we're showing the dense line of the vegetation on that 3.5-foot buffer. And the bicycle rack is, over to the rear right corner of the site, and the remainder of the rear yard is used for either dog run or private use to the residents.
Can we get this a little bit bigger, Dennis?
Yeah. I had this all on a PowerPoint, but PowerPoint wasn't working. So this basement unit, you can see there's a 3-bedroom in the basement. I did want to briefly show the board. You can see 1, 2, 3 entrances in the courtyard, and a total of 5 entrances in the courtyard, and then 2 in the wing on the right here, for a total of 5. All right. And all the floors are identical. They're stacked, except for the basement where that extra unit is. There's no change in the roof lines, and there's no change in the facade.
And Dennis, the changes in the floor plans, if any, how significant is that from what's there now?
Well, there aren't any changes proposed.
No changes except did you make any changes to meet ADA?
Just, the 3-bedroom already meets the ADA requirements, and wherever the ADA units are proposed, I mean, wherever the affordable units are proposed, they'll be ADA compliant.
Thank you, Dennis.
The building is completely sprinklered. That was done when the school bought the building in the 80s. Completely fire alarm system, and so I know that. And so, as far as the facade, we will be making whatever repairs are necessary to the facade, and maintaining the existing windows and the existing shutters. So there's no change historically to the building.
And Dennis, you did work with the historic preservation officer on any of the
Yeah, well,
modifications you're making?
yeah, there aren't any changes to the building, so historic is okay with the application, as far as I know. As far as mailrooms, we felt that the best location would be actually, again, there's only 9 units in each quadrant and 6 in the center. We felt the best thing to do would be just to locate mail in the individual, right inside the individual entranceways. And underneath the stairway, because once you go into the entranceway, you make your way up the building, there's room for packages underneath the stair, and there's room for a mailroom underneath the stair in each quadrant. So that's, they're all the presentation for the building.
Sounds pretty simple, Dennis. If there's any questions for Dennis, or if you want to hold questions till the end.
We'll hold questions till the end.
All right, let's bring up Sam now to give some planning testimony.
Good evening.
Would you raise your right hand, be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And state and spell your full name.
Sure. Samuel Bellamy, last name Bellamy. And
Oh,
my,
Mr. Bellamy, you've been before the board many times. We
yes,
accept your
my license
credentials.
as a professional planner is current and in good standing.
Great. Thank you.
Great. So getting right into my testimony tonight, as Mr. Davino stated, we are asking for a D1 use variance for the multifamily conversion from the current dormitory use. We are located in the University District of the city. It's mainly for St. Peter's University, which kind of anchors this area from Glenwood down to Montgomery Street to spanning to JFK and West Side Avenue. So that university zone really encompasses that area to the south of the subject property. On the north side, there are interspersed the University District as well as the R3 District. This property, as being a dormitory use, was zoned within the University District. As Mr. Davino stated, it was constructed as originally a multifamily residential building at 43 units. I think that was included in the tax card that was in the staff memo prepared for this project. So we're actually proposing the original density that was constructed on the property. I think that's evident through the minimal work that's being proposed here and really just the kind of one-to-one transition from a dormitory residential type use to now a multifamily rental building. So in terms of the use variance, I do think this site is particularly well suited for the proposed multifamily use. Again, this building was constructed originally as a multifamily use. Really, there's minimal work to convert the building back to that type of use within the building, besides the addition of the 3-bedroom unit in the basement to meet the affordable requirement for this building. We are consistent with those inclusionary zoning ordinance, which requires a 10% affordable unit requirement in this building. As Mr. Davino stated, this property was deemed by the Historic Preservation Office as being historically significant. So it's not able to be demolished, and really, since the university sold it from the former dormitory use, I think the most appropriate use for the property is a multifamily unit building as we're proposing here. The units will really be a mix between 1 and 2 bedroom units of adequate size. Within the existing building footprint, we're not proposing any additions or additional, improvements to the interior of the building. In terms of the size of the property, we're at 24,856 square feet. That's a substantially large size. So in the R3 district, the minimum size for a multifamily property is 6,000 square feet. So we're well beyond that. For a lot of this size, the R3 district does have a maximum density requirement of 145 units per acre. So I think, as stated previously, that would yield approximately 83 units on this property. So our proposed 43 units is much less than what would otherwise be permitted if not this property being for in the University District rather than the R3 district. And also, as I stated, that's consistent with what was formerly constructed on this property. I think overall, just the transition between a similar dormitory use that was residential to multifamily, the size of the property and the minimal changes required all support the particular suitability of the site for multifamily use. We are asking for a couple of bulk variances, one related to the location of the bike parking. We're proposing it to be outdoor rather than indoor interior to the building. I think given the unique nature of the building where there's 5 different essentially entrances and really no common location for a bike room, the outdoor location is appropriate. It's behind the building, out of the site. There is direct access along a gated alleyway that provides for direct access to the street and for residents to utilize that bike rack location, and it will be covered to protect the bikes from the elements. So I think overall it's consistent with what the intent of the requirement is. We're also asking for a bulk variances for the buffer to residential zones. Again, we're actually proposing a residential use. The requirement's really to buffer more intense university-type uses from residential zones and properties, and we're improving the condition by proposing a 3.6 foot buffer with plantings along the rear property line to provide for a little more separation and buffering and screening to the residential properties to the north. I think overall the requested bulk variances do meet the C2 criteria where the benefits would outweigh the detriments. Overall, the project does promote the purposes of the municipal land use law. I do think this is an appropriate use and development of the property. It's consistent with other multifamily uses and densities in the area. It's nearby to the West Side Avenue commercial core and also Lincoln Park, so there's other provisions and amenities in the surrounding area, as well as the courtyard space on the property that provides for outdoor space for the residents of the building. As I stated, we're not proposing any additions to the property, so we'll maintain adequate light, air, and open space consistent with Purpose C. And overall, the adaptive reuse type project would conserve the historic structure and materials consistent with Purpose J, the municipal land use law. Overall, I don't see any substantial detriment to the general welfare here. Again, I think this is an appropriate project converting the existing dormitory to a multifamily use that was previously and historically on the property. Will meet all current building and fire codes, as well as meeting the IZO by providing for affordable housing. I don't see a substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan or zoning ordinance. As I said, the surrounding area is both university and residential in nature, so I think this project will fit directly in, and really it will be a seamless transition from the dormitory use to the multifamily use. With that, I think the project meets both the positive and negative criteria, and I would be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Thank you.
All right, that does conclude our direct testimony. Just a few, final thoughts before we get into any questions or anything. I think what's important to know here is that the building has no current utility. It's university zone, and the university didn't want the building. They sold it. It's currently a vacant building. Used to be an apartment building. My client's proposing to convert it back into an apartment building. It's less density than what would be permitted in the R3. It's exactly what would be permitted in the R1 for historically. I'm trying to get a little closer. It's exactly the density that would be permitted in the R1 for a historically significant building. It's really the least intense use for the site. We're not making any changes to the building. We also have a favorable historic officer report. Because it is a historically significant structure, we're making minimum modifications, and I thought the staff report was favorable as well, but you'll hear from staff later. So if the board does have any questions for our team, we're happy to answer those now.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll hear from the public first. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to make any comments? Okay, please come to the mic. You have to state your name, address, and make your comments.
And just raise your right hand for the court. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And just state and spell your full name and address.
Yes, Nathan McCormick, Nathan. McCormick is MacCormack. My address is 130 Glenwood Avenue, Jersey City, and actually my home was visible in the first slide of the evening. So, thank you all for your time and your attention.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
Deborah, I
yes.
just want to repeat that you have 3 minutes, and Mr. Shahid will be the timekeeper, and he'll let you know when you have a minute left.
Appreciate
okay?
it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all for your time. There were just a couple inaccuracies that I wanted to point out that I noticed in the staff report. So, in the application background and the proposal on page 1, it states that the proposed plans abut the R3. It fails to mention that the entire back of the proposed project abuts the R1 zone on Highland Avenue. On page 4, the diagram for the block and the neighborhood analysis is also inaccurate. Lot 59, my house next door to the site, and Lot 58 are both zoned university, not R3 as it shows. Our home at 130 Glenwood Avenue is also omitted from the spreadsheet entirely, which is a single-family home. So again, the site literally abuts our single-family home, not zoned R3, and the backside entirely abuts the R1. While I am supportive of this property being adaptively reused, I am mostly concerned about the track record with its owner thus far. We met with Stephen Joseph several times to discuss the proposed changes as a community, and after several virtual meetings, his clients agreed to address the concerns of the community, such as not adding a 5th story. His clients agreed to many of the changes. However, to date, he has rescinded most, if not all, of those revisions and simply seeks to move forward with the variance. My fear is that once these variances are approved, he will flip the property to someone who will try to add more stories. And as an aside, Hershey Weinstock has flipped several properties on our block after assuring us he was here for the long term. Our small one-way street of Glenwood already faces higher density than most streets. Okay, thank you. Faces higher density than most streets our size. We ask that the board impose conditions, if possible, to how many units be allowed at this property. Please don't let this variance simply be a spoke in the wheel that allows this to become an even bigger building whose owner already has shown a disregard for the basic upkeep and maintenance. The sidewalk was not shoveled during this week's snowstorm. The garbage is constantly being reported on See-Click-Fix. My wife has literally been chased down the street by a squatter in this building. Again, we welcome new neighbors, but we hope the owner is someone who actually maintains the property. If this owner can't maintain it now, why would we create a pathway for him to potentially add more units that will surely be neglected as it currently is?
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make comments from the public?
Happy New Year. Swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
And your full name and address.
Charlene Burke, Burke, and it's 56 Duncan Avenue. And I'm the president of the Westside Community Alliance, which has been involved in this project or attending these meetings now since the beginning. And one of the grave concerns I have, not only with this, but many projects like this, with developers who acquire properties, then look to, in this instance, make a zoning change so that they can resell it, is that the property sits there unsecured. St. Peter's, when they owned it, they had their security system in place via cameras and their security guards 24/7 as a college. This guy, nothing. Broken windows, open access through doorways. I would like to see, when we have developers that have properties like this, one of the conditions should be securing the property. All entries must be secured. All first floor windows must be secured from the interior so that we don't deal with the very recent Fiesta problem that occurred on West Side Avenue, where a developer converted the whole thing into illegal apartments for people who are desperate for a place to live. So to me, as a community leader for the West Side, we have this all too often as a problem. And I would really like to see this board make as their constant condition that these properties be secured properly, and then add a security system. They can pay for Wi-Fi. If there's electricity in this building, put a security system in, a camera system that has alerts when there's movement, so that people can be caught entering this, or the police could connect to it. But either way, because this brings down our neighborhood, when this becomes a problem, and it becomes us, who, the community, that has to become the police and the enforcers, or notifying the police or the building department. And let me tell you, enforcement is very, very, very difficult in this city. To get people out here to make sure that it's done secured and properly closed. So I would like it to be done from the beginning, rather than us be the policers. So thank you, if you could make that a condition.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the community here to speak tonight?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your full name and your address, please.
My name is Kayla. You want me to spell it? Kayla, last name Burrell, Burell. And my address is 197 Duncan Avenue, Jersey City, New Jersey. Okay, good. I'm the vice president of the Lincoln Park North Neighborhood Association, and we, along with McGinley Square Community Board as well as WISCA, have met multiple times over the course of a year working with the applicant, who listened to our feedback and made thoughtful changes. We worked towards what we trusted were common goals, and then they suddenly undid those plans at this property and seemed to just seek the variance, which will yield millions of dollars of profit potentially with very, if little, improvement to the neighborhood. The notion that using a 1940s residential building is a simple conversion to a modern residential building doesn't take into consideration how much life has changed in the last 80 years. There's no longer streetcars. We depend more heavily than ever on automobiles. So, you know, maybe the density is the same as it was, and that worked back then, but I don't believe it works now. Also, as mentioned, this owner has neglected the property, consistently filling it with garbage, not ever sealing it, and they couldn't or wouldn't meet with us after changing the things that they agreed upon on our plans. It's become a real eyesore, and it's become dangerous. I want to thank you for your time, and that's what I have to say this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? No?
Yes.
Okay.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And state and spell your full name and your address, please.
Shireen McCormack, SHIRIN MACCORMACK, 130 Glenwood Ave. Thank you. Community supports the adaptive reuse of this historic asset. We originally planned to speak about the error in the staff report about there being no trees there. We did, because of our community work and working with Councilwoman Mira, as well as Sustainability and Forestry, get those 10 trees planted in the fall of 2023. And those 6 trees that are in front of the property, we would like to remain there, protected during construction, and for 6 new street trees to be planted elsewhere on the block. the required trees planted elsewhere on the block. If those trees cannot stay there safely during construction, we'd like them moved to another place on the block and replanted there, and then the still required new street trees be planted in front of the property or on the block. We also seek a condition for the courtyard to remain open to the public, as it always has been, not gated and private. This would also help to serve, along with the other conditions we're asking, to preserve neighborhood stability and residential quality of life, respective to the purpose of the U zone, especially its surroundings. Another point is that a large pile of bluestone or flagstone currently is on the front yard of the property, for which we seek a condition that it be used and repurposed to create new sidewalks in front of 138 to 140 Glenwood, furthering the efforts of sustainability and also preserving the historic character of the property, which the HP report acknowledged. We would also like a condition considered for the applicant to fund the HP surveys for the property, as well as the other properties that the applicant already bought and flipped at 104 Glenwood, which the community spoke to support, and at 146 Glenwood. He had flipped them, as others mentioned, after claiming he'd stay long-term. Finally, and most importantly, we seek for it to be noted that many of the structures on the block, including but not limited to the Mayhew Terrace cottages on this block, including but not limited to the Mayhew Terrace cottages from 120 to 130 Glenwood, built in 1895, predate by 44 years the structure at 138 to 140 Glenwood, built in 1939. These adjacent neighboring properties predate current zoning and any and all zoning. They are 1 to 2 unit structures, much less than the R1 max allowances. Some were rezoned to R3 and to university in 2001 to encourage the university to be able to grow, and consequently our small one-way block has been upzoned to become much denser than others of its size, such as Highland Avenue to the north, which abuts this property. We believe also that a 10-foot side buffer should always be retained no matter who comes to own the property to further the purpose of the zone. And R3's density is consistently mentioned in the application, and we'd be very grateful if the board can please note that number one, the zoning on Highland abutting the property to the north is all R1 along the whole block, same size as our block. And number two, my adjacent property at 130 is a single family heavily impacted by anything variances granted here. And three, granting this application to convert the building from former university use.
Ma'am, time is up. Your time is over.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope that the last thing I will say, please, is that we are hoping that that nothing is applied for larger than the parcel at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Okay. You will not be limited to 3 minutes.
No limit time.
Yes, Mira, M-I-R-A, Prinzary, P-R-I-N-Z, hyphen A-R-E-Y.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Great. So Chair, Commissioners, thank you for the time to address you tonight. Happy New Year to everyone. I'm here in support of the residents that are here speaking on this project tonight. I've also been involved in these meetings over the last year with McGinley Square Community Board, Lincoln Park North Neighborhood Association, and the West Side Community Alliance. There has been a lot of work back and forth, so I understand their frustration with the sudden change, or not, rather, maybe not sudden, but with the change in the plans from the progress they were making moving forward. So I'm supporting them, asking you all to consider their thoughts and their conditions as you move forward to vote on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals to speak? Okay, I will then close out the public portion of this meeting. And I was going to have the commissioners, or you have something else you want to add right now?
Any questions?
Okay. Okay, commissioners, do you have any comments or questions that you would like to make?
Personally, I would like to know what you guys gonna do about security and cleaning, and how that can be a condition.
Sure, yeah, it's, I mean, obviously unacceptable. I haven't been to the property myself, but I did text with my client as I was hearing these comments. He said that there are monitored security cameras, that someone does call the cops every time someone trespasses on the property. But it is a vacant property, and apparently the garbage has gotten out of control. The squatters have gotten out of control. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Jersey City does have a vacant property registration ordinance where these properties are supposed to be secured and registered with the city if they're not occupied. My understanding is my client has complied with that, but it's clearly been a nuisance in the neighborhood.
So it will be added as a condition.
We're happy with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Respect to the trees, somebody brought up something about the trees. Do you have a comment on that too? in
Yeah, so
response to that?
we're happy to agree to that condition. I believe the condition was, in addition to the trees that are already in front of the property, to plant or make a payment in lieu to forestry for 6 additional trees on the block. There's no issue with that. And to do the best possible to protect the trees that are already there, and if we can't, to move them or replace them.
Okay. Were there any violations given to your client, the owner of the property, for any of the things that they mentioned before, garbage or anything
Not
like
to
that?
my
Police
knowledge.
calls, nothing?
I apologize.
Police calls or anything like that?
No, not to my knowledge. I do know that there were violations during St. Peter's ownership of the property.
Okay. Because that's part of the city's housing code enforcement as well as some of the other stuff that, obviously I like the idea of, I don't know if we have the power actually when it comes to our applications to being able to insist that happens when there's already stuff on the books requiring them to maintain this already. So it is a matter of enforcement, but maybe in the future thinking about that, or even Councilwoman, maybe there's something on the city level, it sounds like you could sponsor to make that a requirement of applications coming forward, if possible. It's a good idea.
Okay, so I have a question. One of the speakers or two had mentioned that there were some agreements made, and then when they're looking at the proposals or the plans, things have changed. Can you explain that to me as to what has changed and why?
Sure. The original proposal was, and we're going back 2.5, maybe 3 years at this point, and we've been working with a bunch of different people on a bunch of these properties for quite some time now. So the original proposal was more intense. There were 53 units here. There were dormers proposed in the property. There were other modifications proposed to the property. And there were a lot of requests from the community based on that level of intensity. And it got to the point where my client could not agree to all the things being requested, such as public access to the courtyard, and more affordable units and all of this stuff. So what my client chose to do instead was reduce the project. Another big request was parking, find somewhere to provide parking, even though parking is not required and impossible to provide when you have a building you can't demolish. So my client chose to remove all the additions to the building and reduce the unit count down to exactly what's there now and what was there prior to the university taking ownership. These plans were circulated. This has been on and off the agenda, as this board knows, quite a few times already. I don't think it's these plans are new or sudden or anything to that effect.
But I was listening to some of the comments, and have you had discussion with the individuals in the neighborhood about some of the things that they were talking about tonight, like the trees, the stone that they were talking about that maybe they could be used because it's stone that's original or something of that sort they were talking about?
The stone I don't recall, but yes, the courtyard, yes, the trees, yes, parking, yes, utilizing the courtyard for public use. Those have all been discussions throughout the process. The trees, we're happy to agree to a condition on that. My client's not willing to make the private areas of the building accessible to the general public. I don't know where to begin with the utilizing of the bluestone. I don't know what's there now. I don't know if that could be incorporated into the public sidewalk and it still be ADA. I'm not sure. Happy to explore that with staff. I just don't know. I don't know what's there now. I don't know what they're referring to with that. So I don't think I could agree to that.
But you will agree to the securing that building right now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have a question. Yeah, my question is, you're asking for a variant on height. So what's the intent of the intention of your height?
So we're not asking for a variance on height. It's an existing non-conforming condition. It's an existing building. We're not changing the height of the building.
You're not, okay, because I see here variance height,
Yes.
a D
On-
variance for a height. That was above the height.
D variance is for use. This is a
Use.
D1 use variance related to the fact that the university zone currently does not allow multifamily residential.
I see, okay. And also, you mentioned parking, so, okay, you keep mentioning parking. What are you gonna, what are the tenants gonna do with parking? Are they gonna do street parking, or how are you gonna, how is
They're
that gonna
gonna-
work out?
They're going to do street parking, or they're not going to have cars and use public transportation. There's no feasible way to provide parking here for this building. We're not able to modify the building to provide parking on site, and the parking is also not required under the zoning. My client did explore renting parking from St. Peter's, but there was prior litigation between my client and St. Peter's related to this property, so those discussions haven't gone anywhere.
And in addition to that, you mentioned you have a 10% affordable housing, that's 43 units, that's 4 units only you're gonna have?
That's 4 units.
Is that gonna be 4 units?
That's 4 units. That's 2 moderate, 2 low. One of those units is a 3-bedroom. That's actually why that 3-bedroom is in the location it is in the building, because the affordable units must, the architect signs a form that says the units are ADA compliant.
Do you have any intention to kind of up that number other than 4%, other than the 4 units?
We don't. I do know that a fee has to be paid for the 0.3. That's what's required. That was the application that was filed with affordable housing.
10%?
10%.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
Just for the record, because it seemed like some of the public has some concerns that that if this property was flipped, that there would be an ability to increase density, height, and all that. They would have to come back here in front of this board
Exactly.
for any of that to happen. Period. There's no way that could happen. So I'm sure your client, if he ever did try to flip it, would make that very clear to the person who was purchasing it. But you would have to come back to this board, and obviously at that point you already, I think, see where some of the obstacles would be if that were to occur. And then I'm assuming that the these things that they all mentioned will be put down as conditions that we talked about.
Yes, certainly, and
Okay.
has been noted, and for certain cases where it's not apparent whether certain things are feasible, a condition can involve exploring. Like I'm not an engineer, and I don't know enough about sidewalk standards to know whether incorporating the bluestone is feasible or not. So you can incorporate a condition involving having a discussion with staff about that and figuring out if that is feasible.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. How do you actually get to that? That's like the issue. Like we could have wonderful discussions, but like, where does it go anywhere?
Yeah.
So would that be with, I don't know, would that be with
Like a
engineering or the city?
prerequisite or something?
Would that be with engineering or something like that regarding this sidewalk?
So as part of review agents for projects, we have the Division of Transportation as well as the Division of Traffic Engineering review all projects. And so we do have in-house staff expertise.
Okay, so rely on them then you guys use them when you have to.
And just one other question about the trees. Are these trees that have been there for years and years, are they protected by the forestry department or anything like that, or that are in the front of the building?
I think they're fairly new.
They just
Are
planted
they
them.
new?
I think
Okay.
the community was very active in getting them
Okay.
planted as staff, or maybe even Dennis might know better than me, but I don't think they've been there a very long time.
Okay. If there are no other questions from the commissioners, I'd like,
I just have one more. I think someone mentioned the windows weren't covered, and you have vagrants coming in and out of those buildings. Is there any way you can cover those the windows, especially on the first floor, so that you don't have anybody coming in and out?
Yeah,
In between you getting the everything done?
absolutely, yes. I'm not sure what the current condition of the building is. What I know from what my client has texted me during this hearing is that the building is actively monitored by security cameras. So if the windows are not covered, we agree that they'll be covered between now and beginning construction, and otherwise secured, however else needed.
okay. Okay, can we hear from the staff comments?
Certainly. The applicant is applying for a D1 use variance to allow a multifamily residential use in the U zone. The use zone currently allows the dormitory use, but not the multifamily residential use, and the distinction there is dormitory use specifically refers to living facilities for students, while multifamily residential involves living facilities for anybody. And so subsumed under that D1 variance, or the 2C variances, sort of at the top of the board's consideration here should be whether that D1 variance meets the positive and negative criteria. So a D1 variance has to meet something called a Medici standard, which refers to that the particular site in question is suitable for the proposed use. Though, in addition, there are two aspects of this project that meet the FICA standard for what's called an inherently beneficial use, and there's reduced scrutiny there related to both the provision of affordable housing and the historic preservation aspect of this project. Mr. Bellamy, in his testimony, went over several forms of public positive criteria, including the fact that this site was originally multifamily. It met the original density. It's of the appropriate size for adjacent residential zones. It's within the R3 density requirement of adjacent uses, as well as within the density requirement for historic preservation uses within the also adjacent R1. And so it would meet the density standards in this case for both the R1 and the R3, which are the two residential zones that are adjacent to this project. It's consistent with the adjacent neighborhood. It's currently vacant and is a bit of a blight in the neighborhood, and returning this building to productive use contributes positively to the character of the neighborhood and the intent of both the university zoning and the master plan in general. Alongside that positive criteria comes the responsibility to prove that to prove negative criteria, essentially that the benefits here outweigh the detriments. And so that would involve, talking about the courtyard space, making sure there's adequate light and air, the fact that they're staying within the existing footprint and not increasing the bulk or the size of the building. Two things Mr. Bellamy did mention in his testimony. With regards to negative criteria, I do have one question for the applicant involving the particular sort of suitability design structure with regards to unit sizes in this building and how that relates. If maybe Mr. Davino could answer that question. What are the average unit sizes? What do they look like in terms of square footage, bedroom count, and the suitability design of the structures related to the property lines and adjacent neighboring properties of the rear and side yards?
So we've worked on multifamilies for quite a few years in Jersey City, and we can, if we look at the average size of a one-bedroom in this particular project, it's over 735 square feet. That's for a one-bedroom. Most of the one-bedrooms in the town, the average have been between 650 and 700. So as far as one-bedrooms, I believe that the square footage for one bedroom is adequate and within the rentable use in Jersey City. Two bedrooms range from 850 to 1,000 square feet. So again, I know this board has seen many multifamilies come in and come by before the board, and those square footages exceed a lot of the large multifamily and high rises that they've been putting in downtown and Journal Square. So I'm certainly feel that and remember, it was constructed in the 40s when then all these units were of substantial size. They were designed to accommodate families, not necessarily single people or dormitories. When St. Peter's purchased it, they realized that it was, because of the large size units, it was adequate for dorms, and they can put more than one person in one bedroom. So the unit size are more than what we've seen in Jersey City in the last few years.
And Dennis, I think you previously testified that the site improvements, that the existing conditions have improved from that you are going to improve the existing conditions. So, for example, there's currently encroachments into the public right-of-way, and there's less landscaping, and you're improving the relationship of the building with the street and with...
Yeah, so as I testified earlier, currently there's a 4-foot or 5-foot fence in the front yard. That fence is about 7 feet into the right-of-way. Well, years ago, we were, the city was okay with encroaching in the right-of-way. So that fence is going to be taken down, salvaged, because it's in adequate condition, and brought back to the property line. That's going to add 7 feet to the sidewalk, to the front right-of-way, and so it creates a much appealing approach to the building, appealing streetscape. So that additional 7 feet. I would like to mention about the courtyard and the public access. The original, when it was a dormitory, there was always a security gate. So public really didn't have access to the courtyard. There was a matter of fact, you can even actually see it in the photograph. It's still there. There's a security booth that kept that courtyard secure. And the fact that the original design of a building like this and the C-shaped design, one of the main intents of that C-shaped design was to create security and privacy into a courtyard. By taking that away, you kind of lose the initial design intent of a C-shaped type of structure. So although it, I understand why the neighborhood is looking for additional green space and additional, it would really have a detriment to the security aspect of the project.
Thank you, Dennis. And as Dennis is looking at his presentation that was also on the screen, there's a photograph on the first page that has no street trees in front of it. That photo was probably taken 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So there was a question earlier about how old are the trees currently in front of the property? 2 to 3, less than 2 or 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. Davino. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Staff substantiates Mr. Davino's testimony there regarding the modern and comfortable nature of these units, as well as the appropriate use of the courtyard as private defensible space as opposed to public space being the appropriate use here. With regards to the 2C variances, with regards to the residential buffer, so that buffer, the intent of that buffer in the zoning is to make sure the more corporate institutional uses of the university have some separation from the residential uses to manage the types of noise and traffic impacts. Obviously, the proposed use here is not those institutional uses, but a residential use. I believe, in Mr. Bellany's testimony, he pointed out that not only is the condition not impaired here, this actually improves the condition because right now the building's vacant, but previously you had a college dormitory adjacent to family residential. Now you're going to have family residential, neighboring family residential. And so you're actually seeing a more compatible use where than what the zoning would allow as a standard. That north side of Glenwood is predominantly residential. The U zone, I think, was essentially extended to every property that St. Peter's owned at the time to streamline their institutional master planning. That property is no longer a university property, and perhaps the highest and best use of the property here is misaligned with the zoning on the map. With regards to bike storage, so as Mr. Davino mentioned, this is a courtyard building with what you call a point access block. So in a modern residential building under the standard New Jersey building code, you would have 2 entrances leading to a corridor with rooms off to the side. This building is not like that. You have a single entrance with a stairwell leading directly to entrances. It's a style that, one, was traditionally very popular within Jersey City in the Northeast. 2, is very much a part of modern European building codes, but is not compatible with the modern New Jersey IBC building code. So modern buildings don't choose for that layout. It means that there's less common interior space, but therefore more private interior space. And often you have larger, more spacious units with more windows. And so that point access block layout really precludes the space for bike storage inside. I think staff thinks the proposal for covered outdoor storage in the secured area outside is very appropriate and certainly mitigates. I think the city would rather see that than not have bike parking at all. With regards to several comments made by the public, first, staff would like to remind the board that the concept of who owns a property is not within the jurisdiction of the board to judge in terms of approval, where the question is the what is being proposed here, and does it meet the standards to be granted the variance or not? I can't speak to the character of the applicant, but the character of the applicant is not under the jurisdiction of the board here. There are, with regards to parking, so as Mr. Joseph mentioned, there is no parking requirement at this site. All projects that trigger Chapter 187, the inclusionary zoning ordinance, are exempt from all parking requirements. Therefore, there is no nexus to impose conditions related to parking here. Additionally, any sort of conditions related to historical preservation of other buildings in the neighborhood also lack nexus. Any conditions have to relate to the purposes and the topic of the subject at hand, which is the granting of the use variance for this building. Some other potential conditions proved fruitful, and I believe the board mentioned several. Staff is satisfied that the positive and negative criteria are met and recommends approval with conditions in the staff memo, plus the additional conditions mentioned by the board.
Okay.
I would just like to list all those conditions, just to make it easier on the record when the resolution, if a resolution gets drafted, if you don't mind. So there's the staff conditions, the standard conditions that are within the staff memo. There's also the HPO's report dated October 23rd, 2024, that imposes historic condition. Any alterations have to get reviewed by the historic officer. And then we discussed this evening a condition for the applicant to plant 6 new trees or make a payment in lieu for 6 new trees in the community to protect the new trees that are in front of the property during construction, and move them or replant them if they become damaged, or if that's not feasible, to secure the property immediately, cover all windows, to protect it from squatters. There's a pile of bluestone in the courtyard. The applicant will work with planning staff to figure out if it's feasible to use the bluestone currently on site and incorporate that into sidewalk features in the area. And I think that's all the conditions.
I think there was one other thing about keeping the property clean, that maybe this person who
Yes.
owns it has to send someone at least once or twice a week to make sure that garbage is not all over the property and the street.
Secure the property immediately clean
And
it,
maintain it.
and maintain that through construction.
Okay.
We'll work with staff on that. Yeah.
That's not on the record.
Not on the record. Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize for.
Okay. Okay, are there any other comments from the commissioners or the staff? Okay. So I would like to get a motion to approve case Z22-078 with conditions. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion with conditions.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Shadid,
Yes.
Commissioner Zabluki,
Yes.
Commissioner Barron,
Yes.
Vice Chair Arujo,
Yes.
Chair Coyle.
Yes.
Motion carries. All in favor.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Take a
Need a break?
Okay,
Thank you.
and do you need a break
Happy
right
New
now?
Year.
You want a break? Okay. At this time, we're going to be hearing, well, whenever you're ready, Bridget, I'll take my time. You tell me if you're all ready. You ready? Okay. At this time, we will be hearing case Z2024-0002, which is 37-43 Wayne Street. And Mr. Harrington is the attorney.
Yes, for the record, Charles Harrington of Connell Foley on behalf of the applicant. And
We already have your notices, Mr.
I
Harrington?
think so. I'm trying to find our copy.
Do we have them?
Okay.
We have checked it, but I thought we marked something here, but in lieu of marking it, Bridget, let's just put on the record that the notices are on the portal. We have reviewed them. They comply, the affidavit, proof of service. Is that what you're still looking for, Mr. Harrington?
Yeah, my assistant usually puts them in here.
I don't blame it on your assistant. No,
No.
that's not good.
That's my job to check
That's your
before I
job.
leave.
Yeah, you know, the buck stops at you, right? So in
Strike
any
that from
event,
the record, please,
yeah,
Bridget.
yes, it's on the portal. We have reviewed it, and so it'll be marked as to A1 once we get a copy in the office. Okay.
Thank you.
That will be A1.
Yes.
A1.
Okay, so, yeah, this application before you tonight, so we think it's a really great project, unique project. It's, it is seeking some C variances as part of the application, and there's a D variance for a use variance, but it's in a Van Voorst Historic District, and it's an old church, a former synagogue, with a former parking lot directly to the west of it. And what we're proposing to do, or I say we, the royal we is my client, is to adaptively reuse the church and have five units there, 5 residential units there, and then build a new structure, a new town. It's not a townhouse because it's 5 units directly next door on the existing parking lot. And that will trigger what we're doing is proposing it as kind of a campus. So we're not building on 2 separate lots. We want to merge the lots. So it's 10 units on 1 lot. That triggers one of the variances here for 2 principal buildings on 1 lot. It also kind of works on the parking variance. If we had come to the board and said we want to propose a 5-unit building on lot A and a 5-unit building on lot B, we wouldn't be required to have any parking. But because we're putting them together with 10 units on 1 lot, that triggers parking in the historic district. Then there's a few C variances that are a result of existing conditions, the height of the existing house of worship or former synagogue, and then there's that triggers also a rear yard setback issue as a result of the existing condition of the house of worship. But we do believe it's a good project. We have presented to the Van Voorst Historic Preservation Committee twice, once to their executive committee, once to their full committee. We also presented to the Historic Preservation Commission for a certificate of appropriateness, and that was granted at their meeting in December. So, we've kind of got the blessing from, the respective community and more importantly, the Historic Preservation Commission on what we're proposing tonight. With that said, I have two witnesses tonight. We have our architect, Nicole Robertson, will present the architecture, and then Catherine Gregory will take you through the respective proofs.
Okay. She's going to present to David.
I don't recognize her.
So you ask your questions.
Mr. Harrington, I don't recall this young lady coming before us, has
Oh.
she?
I believe I have.
Really?
I can,
I'm getting old. so
That's
the
okay.
memory is going, but really.
no worries.
Would you raise your right hand?
Sure, of course.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you could state and spell your full name, please.
It's Nicole, Nicole, Robertson, Robertson.
She's the better half of Mr. Garber.
Oh.
He was here earlier.
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah, we did a little,
is that we only see
Passing
Richard, right?
baton.
He leaves you somewhere else, right? He doesn't want to bring you in here?
does come more often,
Yes.
yes. But,
Yeah, Ms. Robertson has appeared before this board and the planning board many times.
Really?
yeah.
It's the first time I'm seeing you.
Would you like to hear her?
Yes, please.
Sure. I have an undergraduate degree from Princeton University, 1995, and UCLA, Master of Architecture, 1999. And I've been a licensed architect since 2003, so going on more than 20 years. And I presented before this board, maybe less so, but planning board as well, several times.
Great. We
Thank
accept
you.
your qualifications.
Okay, thank you.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. I know, it may have been a while, so no worries. Okay. All right, so as Mr. Harrington introduced, we have presented this project to the Historic Preservation Commission, and we've also worked very closely with the Planning Office to come up with a scheme that was, amenable to the goals of both of those groups as well as the community. This is a kind of preview rendering of the project that I'm going to present tonight, which is the adaptive reuse of the existing church, which is well known to this neighborhood, and the creation of a new construction building adjacent to the church on what is now a vacant parking lot. So this is a rendered view of what we're proposing. The location of the site is on Wayne Street between Grove and Jersey. Where the site is about 100-foot by 100-foot lot, which is currently occupied by church. It's in the Van Voorst Park Historic District. And this is a site plan of the existing church, which shows the building footprint and the adjacent parking lot, which served the church. We have here a view of the existing church as it is. It actually has gone through quite a transformation since its, original construction. But this is what it looked like about a year ago before we started a process of exploratory demolition. These are some maps which show what existed on the site formerly. So when the church was first built in 1873 is the date on this map when it was the Dutch Reformed Church, and adjacent to it was an old, it was referred to as an old ladies' home. Adjacent to it, in line with the other brownstones along Wayne Street, and then later we see it as a United Brotherhood synagogue in 1928 map. And these are images that we have of the church when it was the first Reformed Church of Van Voorst in 1870, the historic photo on the left. You can see it looks quite different from what it looked like about a year ago. The cupola had been removed, as well as a lot of the architectural detail at the cornice and a very articulated pediment. And then on the right-hand side is a historic photo from the 1938 tax map, or tax photos, when it was the United Brotherhood Synagogue, where it also went through some transformation for its use as that purpose as a place of worship. But those features, a lot of those architectural features that you're seeing in both of these photos were removed. And there was a kind of white stucco that was applied to the outside of the church, and the architectural details removed. This is a photo also from the 1938 tax photo of the brownstone that had existed, a residential building on what is the parking lot today, and this was demolished. I don't know the date of when that was demolished, but that was no longer there, and that lot has been used as a parking lot for the church for some time. So our zoning tabulation chart here, I've highlighted the variances that we are seeking. First is a variance for permitted principal uses, because it's an existing parking lot, an existing church. We're proposing multifamily residential on both lots, which is not permitted, so requires a variance. And then 2 principal structures are proposed on the one lot, which also requires a variance. But I think, as Mr. Harrington outlined, after working with the planning office, we determined that the way to kind of reduce the number of variances we were looking for was to merge the lots and really treat this as a campus, so that we would be more compliant with the zoning requirements. We have a minimum rear yard in which we, the existing church goes right up to the rear lot line, so it is a pre-existing non-conforming condition, but our rear yard setback for the proposed new construction does comply at 30 feet. The minimum building height, or maximum building height, of the church currently exceeds. So again, it's a pre-existing non-conforming condition, and that's why we say that it does not comply, because the church is 41.75 feet tall, and we're allowed 40 feet. But the proposed new construction is 39.75 feet tall, so it complies. Parking was another consideration here. Because we have 10 units, we're required to have 0.5 parking spaces per unit, so that would be 5 spaces are required. But we are not proposing parking for this project. We looked at a lot of different possibilities for that, and if these were treated as 2 separate lots, it would actually not be permitted within a historic district. So anything below 10 dwelling units, parking is not required. So we're kind of right on the edge of that. But I think working with the Historic Preservation Office, it was felt most appropriate that we not include parking in the project, because it would not have been part of the historic district. And then lastly is permitted rear yard encroachments. We do have a small encroachment. 4 feet max is allowed into the rear yard. So we are complying with the 30-foot rear yard setback, but we do have a little bit of stair, which I'll explain in the plans, that does project about 3 feet further into the rear yard setback. Okay, so the main key points I've kind of been through, and I think are probably best looked at in the plans. But one of the main factors that we had to consider here with the conversion of the church into residential was the base flood elevation, because the existing church is actually at 9 feet. The base flood elevation here is at 11. So there's currently an occupiable basement in the church, which is used for, which was used for community services and things. And we actually looked to use that for residential. We initially sought to modify the church as little as possible. That was really the goal. But working with DEP, it's required that this conversion to residential requires that the living spaces are 1 foot above base flood elevation, so had to be 3 feet higher than the level of the existing basement. So that was one of the fundamental kind of design factors, driving our decision-making on this project. So that base flood elevation was critical, and I think I can explain that best in the plans. So this is a demolition plan. Another kind of important point is that there is a kind of one-story appendage on the existing church, which we are proposing to demolish. Historic agreed that this was not a historically significant part of the church. It served as a kind of annex utility space, and it's this kind of rectangle here at the rear of the church, which also butts up against the rear lot line. We felt it was a positive to remove it and actually highlight the kind of more important overall form of the church, and it also kind of alleviates some of the pressure that little structure was putting on the rear lot line in its close proximity to the neighboring properties. Okay, so this is the existing site plan. The orange rectangle there, solid, shows there's a vehicular access gate there, and then the empty triangles show where there are pedestrian access points along this fence. This is a fence that we are keeping and actually repairing and restoring. So in our proposed site plan, we are maintaining only pedestrian access, and we're actually restoring and keeping the existing fence and restoring those pedestrian access gates. Our proposed site plan, as Mr. Harrington described, has 5 units proposed inside the church, and the way that we've organized them, well, actually, it's probably best shown when I zoom in on another plan. I can quickly just touch on lighting. We have a proposed lighting plan, which allows for adequate lighting around both buildings, and especially illuminating the kind of walkway that is between the new and existing buildings. Okay, so the first floor plan, on the left you have the existing church and parking lot, and then on the right-hand side is our proposed site plan. I'll zoom in on it a little bit so that you can see. So the way that we've organized the church is into 5 units that are cut east-west. So we're working with the existing geometry of the church windows, which are very prominent on the facade. And we use that to organize the units kind of crosswise, almost like, slicing it sideways so that we would detract as little as possible from the exterior of the church. And then the new construction on the right-hand side, you see they're buffered by a kind of walkway that would serve pedestrians. This is really the main entry point to the campus. We have here on the right-hand corner of the church, this is a common space for utilities, trash, mailboxes, bike storage, electric, these kinds of things. And then the rest of the space is dedicated to residential. So most of the units have their main entrance points off of this walkway, which is 11.5 feet wide. Unit B entrance is here. You enter into the unit, go up the stairs, and the main living space is on the second floor. There is a bedroom here at the rear of the unit, which then, and then there's access to a private outdoor space at the back. So each of these units, A, B, C, D, and E, are all organized in a similar kind of way, with some internal variation just for, diversity. And Unit A is really the only exception in that, in order to accommodate some of these common utility elements in this right-hand corner or of the church, we're accessing Unit A from a private walkway through their private outdoor space and into a door which is on the east side of the church. And these doors are repeated along the length of the church. These are all existing openings that we're just reusing and adapting to the new residential use. On the right-hand side, we have the new construction, and what we've done is we do not have a unit, at least at this level, at ground level at the front, because we are matching the first floor level of the existing brownstones along Wayne Street. But the units 2 and 3 are one-bedroom, one-story units, which are essentially on grade. They're at that 12-foot elevation, so just slightly above. And then above that, we have 3 units. Units 1, 4, and 5 are all triplex units. But the unit up at the front, that fronts onto Wayne Street, there's a crawl space below it. So that's what you're seeing in plan here. Another feature I just want to point out is at the rear, we have a private, what's labeled here as Unit 5 rear yard. This is how Unit 5 enters their residential areas through a gate and up exterior stairs, which then lead to what is the second floor of the building, is the first floor of Unit 5. So this was this stair that I was referring to. We are allowed to project 4 feet into the required 30-foot rear yard setback, which we are meeting, but we do have about 3 feet of stair that is projecting beyond that 4 feet, and that is really because we're not able to push the stair any further to the right. By building code, we're not allowed to be closer than 10 feet. That's what this dimension is. Okay, the other thing I want to point out on this site is that we've located all of the condensing units at the rear of the property. They're essentially where that little accessory structure had been, but we're locating them outside so that they're easy to access. You don't have to, go onto the roof or anything. They're protected and concealed by a gate or gated fenced-in area that surrounds them, and the entire site is actually enclosed by a 6-foot-tall fence that gives privacy to the units. So this is private space for Unit 5, and all of the units have some form of exterior space, private exterior space, with the exception of Units 3 and 2, which have, a small kind of planted area right in front of their entryway. Okay, so that's the first floor. This drawing just points out the setbacks. We have our 30-foot rear yard setback, and then the new construction matches the front yard setback of the adjacent existing townhouses that front on Wayne Street. And then the church is existing to remain. We're not altering any of those setbacks. We have the utility areas highlighted here in orange: sprinkler room, electrical room, gas meter room. All of these spaces, trash room, mail room, and bike room, are all shared spaces between the 2 buildings. So it just reinforces that kind of campus structure. And trash removal is also handled with a kind of common trash room, and then trash would be brought out to the sidewalk on pickup days. Second floor plan, so on the left-hand side, the second floor of the church is the main kind of nave and worship area, which we have converted into residential by inserting a series of demising walls. And this plan actually probably shows it most clearly, the organization of the units from front to back and how they relate to the existing window openings that are on the east and west sides of the church. That was really what was driving the design. Same as this kind of tower portion that projects a little bit for Unit A makes it a little bit unique. And then on the new construction, you can see the first level of Unit 1. Unit 1 is a triplex, which is accessed off of Wayne Street. It has a stoop that matches the stoops that you see along the street. We actually went out and measured it and made sure that it was matching that. We're able to match the floor height so that our windows would then also be similar in size and location. And then we have the first level of Unit 4, which is accessed from the stair that is coming up from below. That comes to the first level, which is the main living space of Unit 4, and then we see the main living space of Unit 5, which is also on the second floor of the building. Third floor plan is, we're utilizing the tall space of the church to create a level with bedrooms that front on the east and west sides. And then we put the more private spaces, which don't require natural light, in the middle, as well as the stairwells. And then in the new construction, we have bedrooms basically organized to take advantage of natural light. And then the darker spaces are on the lot line. And then the fourth level of the new construction just shows a kind of primary bedroom suite organization with walk-in closet, large bathroom. So these are, these are luxury units. They're really intended for families so that they can stay in the downtown area. Units of this size are actually pretty unusual for this part of Jersey City. So I think it's, really meant to encourage families to stay. And then this drawing here is a roof plan, which shows the roof plan of the existing church. We are introducing skylights into the roof of the church. They're not visible from any public right-of-way. They're like flat skylights, which don't interfere with the gable of the church. Historic did reinforce to us that the gable is, a very iconic aspect of the church, so we did not want to interfere with that. But we do have skylights so that we can just, because the units are so long, they do get a little dark in the middle, so we have skylights there that bring natural light into the space. And then on the new construction, you can see private roof deck space for units 4 and 1. Which are accessed by a sky door, which is like a low skylight type door. So it's not a large stair bulkhead or anything that would be visible from the public right-of-way. It's like a, pop-up sky door that has access via stairs. And then we have a green grid modular green roof that runs the perimeter of that roof. So these are our existing front elevations. You can see how the church, the decorative detailing and kind of architectural features of the original church were totally stripped and covered by a kind of white stucco-like material. We've removed that during a process of exploratory demo, working really closely with Historic on that. And we've been able to expose a lot of almost like through a forensic process, we've been able to expose and reconstruct the detail of the original church. So this is our proposed elevation for the church, which, we're looking to basically bring it back, reconstruct what it was in the detail of the cornice and these architectural features like the fan window and the restoration of the stained glass. The entry door also, was diminished quite a lot. So we're recreating this large entry door, although it is not operable. It's really not just for kind of restoring the look of the church and the steps. And then we have our new construction, which really echoes the rhythm of the existing brownstones along Wayne Street. We're using a red brick, which I have here. So we've found that that's the closest match to what we found on the church. So the brick on the church is being basically exposed and repaired and restored, and then we're using a similar color brick for the new construction. All of the details are a kind of dark brown color. We have brownstone elements. We've chosen different colors of mortar to highlight the front facade of the new construction so that it pops versus the side facade. So we've worked through a lot of details in trying to create something appropriate for this location. Existing rear elevation is pretty nondescript. We're not touching the rear of the church at all except to expose the brick. And then the rear elevation of the new construction does have large windows to take advantage of, as much natural light as possible. The other views of this new construction, we really did not want to detract at all from the church. So we're having the largest windows on the rear where they're not competing with one another. Existing elevation of the church, I'll just move through this. I know there's a lot. Actually, this is a very detailed drawing set, which we went through in great detail with Historic. But I can basically highlight that, the existing windows of the church that were still there, although infilled with glass block, we maintained those openings, the width of the openings. We are proposing to make them taller in order to make that third story of the adaptive reuse of the residential space actually meet the requirements for natural light. So we've raised the height of the window header. So there has been some adjustment to that, but overall we feel that, keeping the rhythm of these windows and proportions is most critical. So the elevations are quite similar. The east and west elevations of the church are very similar, and you can see the proposed windows with divided lights, operable panels, and then we have the glass doors below which align. The proposed elevation for 43 Wayne Street, which is the new construction, echoes the organization of the church in that we're keeping with the width we're using a similar width to the windows that you see on the church here. Similar idea, but a more modern kind of expression, using a casement window and then a fixed side light and lower window, and then a metal panel in between. But overall, we're trying to emphasize the verticality of that and its relationship to the church. And then on the side facing kind of alleyway, we have a stucco treatment, but we are wrapping the brick so that when you're walking down Wayne Street, you do see the brick is wrapped. I think it's about 10 feet. And we have an block elevation here, which shows the effect of our proposed design. The church restored and we're maintaining the void spaces around the church, which we felt was really important to kind of framing the church as the most important building. And then we have our new construction, which is very similar in size to the 4 units at the corner, all the way to the west on this elevation. And you can also see that the proposed windows for the new construction are very consistent with what you see along the block. We have site diagrams which just demonstrate how we're not able to see any kind of bulkhead or structures on the roof. We made every effort to, put the condensing units on the ground and not have any stairs or anything popping up onto the roof. We have our building sections which show this condition that I had initially mentioned about the basement level being at 9 feet. In NAV, so minus 3'6". If our average grade is at 0, the basement was at minus 3'6", and we are raising that level. So we have a building section which shows how we're infilling, and we're raising that floor level to 12 feet so that we're outside of the flood zone, and we can have usable residential space as is required by DEP and what everybody, it's more secure, of course. And this is a building section of our new construction, which shows, as I was mentioning, this idea of the crawl space that we're creating for the unit that fronts onto Wayne Street, because we're matching the floor heights of the adjacent buildings on Wayne Street, and then our units that are in the middle and rear are at grade. And these are just, we did a lot of drawings of the space, just working through how we were changing the floor levels of the church. And then you can see the section through the new construction as well. We are not affecting the existing gable of the church or any of the amazing existing roof trusses. We've crawled all over that space. It's very cool. This is what the church looked like about 3 months ago during exploratory demo. So all of this kind of rubble here is the white stucco material that was removed in order to expose the original brick. And then, we created, on the left-hand drawing is the existing conditions, which we drew in detail, and then on the right-hand side is the proposed condition, and these things do align. This kind of shows the shift in the facade that occurs due to the raise in floor levels. And then lots of detailed documentation of the existing opalescent glass window. We have our proposed details. I'm just going to go quickly through these, but it was a very interesting process to measure and record all of the kind of features of the existing church. We were able to, by taking off that stucco, we were able to expose this amazing profile of the cornice, and that's how we're able to reconstruct what was there. And I think, I'm not sure how much I need to go into these details, but we have given a lot of thought to the material selections and design of all of these elements. These are just some quick street views, just to test visibility. We've done shadow studies to show how, where are we? Sorry, I'm like, oops. Yeah, I mean, it's, the church itself was casting shadows. We're casting shadows that are similar to the shadows that are already being cast by other existing buildings, nothing out of the ordinary. And that was the rendering. Oh, this has the tree, so you can't, so we are proposing street trees, but they obscure the view of the church, so we do have a rendering that shows it without the street trees, but of course there will be trees. And I think I'll leave that at that. If there's any questions, I'm happy to go back to any of the details.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Should I unplug?
Okay, now I'll assume we'll hold all questions till the end?
Yes.
Okay, and so we'll move forward now with our planner, Catherine Gregory.
Please. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And state and spell your name.
Catherine Gregory, Kathryn. Gregory is Gregory. My business address is 96 Linwood Plaza, number 350 in Fort Lee, New Jersey.
And Miss Gregory, I recognize. My memory's coming back. Yes.
Yes, I'll offer her as an expert in planning.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Okay, Catherine, take it away.
Great. So Nicole got to describe the project to you, and now I get to justify the variances associated with I believe to be a very beautiful project. We're actually here for a use variance tonight. It's interesting because if you see the context in which our architects has designed the project, the intent is that these are more like townhouses, which are permitted in your zone. But based on your ordinance, a townhouse can only have 1 to 4 units, and we have 5 in each of the buildings. So therefore, we get kicked over to the multifamily status, and therefore we need the use variance. Now, I would argue that I believe that the site is particularly suitable. In terms of particular suitability, what you also need to do is distinguish the property from the immediate area. And as shown on the architectural drawings, you'll see the aerial. We have the church building, and then we have a parking lot. And if you look at the context of the street, there aren't any other properties like that in this immediate area. So we do have a very unique situation. We also have the fact that we're doing the adaptive reuse of the church building. We also have the fact that this is oversized for the zone. We're proposing 10,000 square feet for the combination of the 2 lots, where 1,800 square feet is required. Also, we are under the density, even though we need this multifamily use, I put that in quotes again, we are under the density for the zone that is actually permitted. So I think that there are many reasons that lend itself to why this site is particularly suited for this particular use of a multifamily, which I feel like is a fine line given the context of this project. In terms of the bulk variances, Nicole went through those with you as well. And I would say that this is probably really a case of a C2 variance, where I believe that the benefits are going to outweigh the detriments. We have the 2 principal buildings on 1 lot, which is not permitted.
Sorry, we have the 2 principal.
Buildings on 1 lot, I'm sorry, I know I speak fast. which is technically not permitted. And yes, we are combining two lots to have those two buildings. But as was explained, this is a unique situation since we do have an existing building, which is the church building, which we are doing the adaptive reuse, and the desire to create a campus and to create more of a townhouse style where we have that common corridor, and then we have every unit having its own entrance. So therefore, we believe that this site lends itself to having the two buildings on the one lot. We also need a variance for the rear yard setback. That's an existing condition of the church. It's existing at 0 feet. The public is already accustomed to this. We also need a variance for the building height of the church. This is also explained by our architect. 40 feet is permitted and 41.75 feet exists for the church building. But again, the public's already accustomed to this. We also need a variance for the encroachment of that stair into the rear yard. Our architect also described to you the reason why we have that is that the stair cannot be closer than 10 feet to the property line because of building codes. So we're kind of wrestling with the zoning code versus the building code, but I believe that in this instance, the safety of the building code will override the zoning code in this particular issue. We also need a variance for the number of parking spaces. I think this was also explained really well by our architect. The fact is that if we had one less unit on this entire site, we wouldn't need any parking. And again, if we still kept it into two separate lots and we had 5 units on each lot, we wouldn't need any parking. It was also described that our applicant has met with the Historic Commission, and they believe that having parking on the site would not really lend itself to the intent and purpose of the historic district. So we believe that that variance is also warranted. And last but not least, our building coverage variance. 60% is permitted and 67% is proposed, but we actually are under on our lot coverage, so I think that that balanced each other out, excuse me. And so I believe that that variance will also be warranted. So in terms of the special reasons or the positive criteria for the granting of both the use and the bulk variances, I believe that we do promote Purpose A, which talks about promoting the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. One of the reasons I say that is we are doing that adaptive reuse of the existing structure, which actually goes another step further because we're also talking about going into sustainability because we are not knocking down an existing building and we are reutilizing a lot of the existing structure that exists. So I think that that's an important part of this particular project, as well as maintaining that historic nature of the street. I also believe we promote Purpose E, which talks about promotion of appropriate population densities. As I stated earlier, we are actually under the permitted density for the district with the proposal that we have before you this evening. I also believe we promote Purpose I, which talks about a desirable visual environment. The architect has really, I believe, designed a really great project and respecting like the historic nature of the entire district and bringing that church building back to its original character, and just as well putting in a newer building, but having the streetscape itself reflect what was there before and the buildings that are located along Wayne Street. Also Purpose J, which is a pretty easy one, promote the conservation of historic sites and districts. Obviously, that's what we're doing here. And then in terms of the negative criteria, I don't believe that there's any substantial detriment to the public good by the granting of any of the variances. We are promoting redevelopment of the area. We are promoting adaptive reuse of an existing historic structure. I don't believe there's any substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of your zone plan and zoning ordinance by granting these variances. A number of the bulk variances are existing. I think we meet the intent of the historic district better with what we're proposing on the site rather than having a parking lot located right in the middle of the block. And actually, according to your planner's report, which I identified some of the same goals that were located in the master plan that we promote, which would be 1, to continue efforts to enhance residential neighborhoods. I believe that we're doing that here. Ensure the city's available housing is balanced and meets the needs of all current and future city residents. and also to recognize and promote the richness of the city's historic assets and cultural diversity. I do believe we promote these 3 goals of the master plan. And like I said before, I believe that we meet the intent of the purpose of this particular zone, the historic district, the Van Voorst Historic District. So I think that we meet both the positive and the negative criteria for the granting of the variances associated with this application this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
That would complete our presentation, so
Okay.
if there's any questions for either of the professionals.
Okay. First, I'm going to see if there's any comments from the public. Is there anyone here to make any comments? Okay, can you come forward?
Oh, no, he's my client.
He's waving. He's waving.
He
Okay,
supports it.
Great, okay. Do I have any comments from the commissioners or questions? No. Staff, would you like to make any comments?
Very briefly, staff agrees with the applicant's testimony. For the D1 use variance, even though it is a use technically because it is more than 4 units and so it doesn't fall under the townhouse definition, the proposed new construction conforms with the bulk requirements of the historic zone, and the existing church, of course, is going to be rehabilitated and maintained. And the whole project itself is still under the maximum permitted density. And very quickly, I would also like to add that I do believe this project does further the purposes of what's defined in the MLUL, and B, to secure from fire, flood, panic, and other natural and man-made disasters. Rehabilitating the existing house of worship will bring the building to current building codes, which will provide a safer area, and also located in the back of the property is a bioretention area in the back of the new construction specifically. And I also believe it furthers the purpose of C, to provide adequate light, air, and open space, since windows will be expanded and skylights will be added to the existing church, which will improve the church's access to light, air, and open space. And with that, planning staff would ask that the applicant agree to the conditions that are outlined in the staff memo dated January 7th, 2025.
Yes, we would.
And planning staff recommends approval.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so without further ado, I'm asking for a motion to approve case Z2024-0002, which is Wayne Street, with conditions. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept this project for approval.
With conditions.
With the conditions, yes.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Shadid?
Yes.
Commissioner Zabluki?
Considering the public actually didn't even show up when it comes to a project in that area of the city, you checked all your boxes apparently, so obviously my answer is yes.
Commissioner Barron?
Yes.
Vice Chair Arujo?
Yes.
Chair Coyle?
Under one condition, that you let me know when they're ready, so I'm looking to purchase again in Jersey City, and this looks like a great project. Yes, thank you.
Motion carries, 6 in favor, none opposed.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Before I leave the podium, just for the record, 201 Newark Avenue, is that being
Carried
carried
to
to?
February 6th. Yes,
Okay.
with preservation of notices, and I assume on the 6th, you're going to tell us what the correct date is.
Yes,
Right.
we're working on a
We're
special
working
meeting
on the
date,
correct
but that is kind of the
That's the
interim measure.
holding pattern,
Exactly.
kind of like flying over Kennedy.
Right.
No, the drone.
Drone, a drone over the.
Before I make,
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Before I make any motion to adjourn this meeting, I did overlook that Eric was we were going to have a discussion of the annual zoning board report. Do you want to do that tonight, or do you want to hold it to the next meeting? Would you like to do that now?
I think we can do it tonight. That's
Okay.
fine. Yeah, if that's okay with.
Is it
the board.
brief?
What time is it?
It is approximately 9:10.
I'll make it brief.
Okay,
I'll make it brief.
thank you. Let's have this.
Yeah.
Good job. Yeah, 'cause I'm ready to go home. Time him, Shahid. 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Shahid,
Okay, so
okay.
The-
Shahid, time him. Time him.
okay, so the former secretary, of course, drafted this up. I'm just presenting some of his findings, and something to note that I found important to state on record here is there's been a significant decline, or at least comparing 2003 or 2023 to 2024, there's been a significant decline. Significant decline in our zoning board applications. In 2023, there was 63 applications in comparison to 38 applications in 2024. So that's a very steep decline, which is actually a good thing. That means the ordinance is doing its job. And also, the approval rate has actually increased by 3% in comparison to 2023 to 95%. As far as the residential unit mix that was approved in 2024, roughly 241 residential units was approved in 2024, and about 20 of those units were designated as affordable. A lot of the variances that were brought to the board and approved were within the R1 zoning district, which is to be expected. And a lot of those variances were consisting of C variances. About 12 D variances came to the zoning board in 2024, and most of them were approved, or at least most of the C variants or D1 use variances were approved. Only one of them was denied. But still, we had 12 D variances that were brought to the board. Some of the recommendations, or a couple of recommendations from staff, is that we continue to analyze the data to implement future phases of the Jersey City Master Plan recommendations, as well as possibly converting or changing the university zone into an overlay. And that's pretty much the annual report for 2024. Tried to be
Thank you, Eric.
as quick as possible.
Oh, my God.
You had a minute
still had
left,
a minute
too.
left. You still had a minute left. Okay, we do have some resolutions
Make a motion to approve that?
to approve. Yes, a motion to approve the annual report. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the annual report with conditions. No, just kidding.
With conditions.
Just kidding.
As you seconded,
No.
okay.
Okay. Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Shadid?
Yes.
Commissioner Zabluki?
Yes.
Commissioner Barron?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ruhel?
Yes.
Chair Coyle?
Yes,
Motion carries, 6 in favor, none opposed.
okay. And lastly, we have the memorialization of
Right.
resolutions.
There's two resolutions. The first is case number Z22-079. The address was 146-152 Glenwood Avenue. It was an application for a preliminary and final major site plan with D and C variances. That was heard on July 25th, 2024.
Wow.
Present that evening were Commissioners Allen, Arroyo, Shadid, Barron, Boyle, and Zablicki. That passed 5 in favor, 1 opposed, the 1 opposed being Commissioner Shadid. All in favor of memorializing that?
Aye.
Aye.
And the last one is case Z 2024-0027, 198 Freeman Avenue. The applicant was Janelle Payne. That was for a C variance. Present on December 12th was Commissioners Arroyo, Boyle, Barron, Zablicki, Burns, and Shadid. And that passed 6 in favor, none opposed. All in favor of memorializing that is?
Aye.
Aye.
And that concludes the resolutions.
Okay.
And hopefully that concludes the evening, correct?
Okay, and with that said, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
This was an early one, believe it or not.
And we got a lot done. Tonight was